Alright guys, welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn how to implement lazy loading for improved performance. But what is lazy loading? In simple terms, lazy loading is a design pattern. It allows you to load parts of your application on demand to reduce the initial load time. For example, you can initially load the components and modules in the home page, then you can load the rest of the components based on user navigation. Now let's see how we can implement lazy loading in React Router. First, we identify the routes and components that we need to lazy load. These are typically components that are not required immediately when the application loads. So for us, those will be all other components apart from our home page component. So that means we can lazy load all other routes and components apart from our home page route. Then we replace the import statement of those components with dynamic import using React Lazy function. Let's see how that works. We are going to start with our users component and see how we can import that using React Lazy. So down here, we are just going to say const users, and this is going to clash with this component, but eventually we are going to have to delete this. So let's just see how that works for now. So const users, and then is equal to, so we are going to grab the lazy hook from React. So that will be react.lazy. Just like this. And this takes a fallback function, as you can see, for the component we want to import. So in here, we're just going to declare an arrow function and then import the component we want to import. Since this is for the users component, we are simply going to import it here. So we are just going to copy the import path from the direct import we did, copy, and then we'll paste it in here. That's all. So this is basically how we lazy load a component. We simply import it using react.lazy, just like this. And we're having this error because the users is already defined up here. Now let's clear the direct import since we've imported it using React Lazy. Alright, now let's do the same for all of our components except for our homepage component, since we want to lazy load all other components. As you can see, we don't have React imported here. So I'm just going to import. Now let's actually destructure lazy from React. Rather than having react.lazy, we can simply have lazy. So where we have our React import next to our use state, we're just going to say lazy. And then we can remove the React, just like this. To do this for the rest of the components, I'm just going to copy and paste this code. And then we simply start changing them one by one. Next, let's do the same for our user profile page. So I'm just going to copy the name user profile and then the path to the component. Paste it in here. Next, I'll do for our search user component. Change this and then we copy the path. And then we update this also. Next, we'll do the same for our login component. Change this and then we copy the path. And then we update that also. Oh, sorry, I mistakenly clicked Ctrl C. And then we replace that also. We still have a few other components to do, so let's just copy and paste all of these again. So we have like 3. We have our auth profile. Copy the path. And then we paste it in here. So we'll do the same for our about component. So over here, and then we copy the path and then update it. So we are not going to lazy load our homepage component because that is the component we want to load immediately a user enters the application. So it doesn't make sense to lazy load that component. We have an extra import here which is not needed. You can clear that. And then all the components we've lazy loaded, we can simply remove all their direct imports. So I'm just going to copy from auth profile down to our user profile. Oops, we forgot our not found component which we want to lazy load also. So I'm just going to create another one, add our not found component, and then we copy the path. Just like this. And then we can remove that. We no longer have our navbar in the app.js file, so we can also remove that. And then, yes, we also lazy loaded our About Us page, so that can go. Now, instead of directly importing all components, we've lazy loaded some of them, and those are the ones we don't need when the application initially loads. So the home component that is needed when the application loads immediately is going to load way faster than it used to because all other components have been delayed. Alright, as much as this offers a better performance for our application, if your application is big enough, it can still mean that a user has to wait for a lazy loaded component to load when they try to access that component, and they will see a white or blank page for a few seconds. That is really not ideal for user experience. Well, React offers a component called Suspense, and this component provides a solution to that problem. Let's import the Suspense component and then see what it does. So import Suspense. So the Suspense component allows you to show a fallback UI while the lazy loaded component is being loaded. So we can create a simple H1 that shows loading or some other component of our choice before the lazy loaded component finish loading. Let's see how that works actually. Now all we need to do is we need to wrap our route inside of our Suspense component. So I'm just going to cut the route over here and everything inside of it. And then we declare our Suspense component. And inside of here, we can paste our routes. All right. And then we can define our fallback prop. Say fallback. And here we can put in a component we want to show before the lazy loaded components actually show up. So for this one, we just want to show loading. We can easily use a H1 tag. H1 that shows loading. Just like this. Now, if we head back to our browser and test this, we might not see the loading from the Suspense component. And that's because this application has relatively small components, so they should be able to load up pretty quickly, even when we are using lazy loading. Let's see for ourselves. So let's go to the home page. So if we go to the home page and refresh our application, let's try navigating to another page and see if we will see our loading. You see, we don't see any loading. This might be because of the animation we added, or this might also be the fact that our users page is a relatively small component. So it doesn't need a lot of time to load up. But by the time you have a complex and big application, this is a real game changer. So if you don't get any errors as you are testing yours and everything seems to be working fine, that's a great sign and you can just assume it works. But by the time we build more complex applications, you really see the power of lazy loading.